Welcome to the Binmin podcast, where we believe the Christian life can be hard to figure out, but everyone should know their next step for making their spiritual life more important to them. I'm Bob, and I'm flying solo today. Because as you'll see, we have a very special panel of amazing women who are going to share with us on the topic of what does it take to be a young adult female Christian leader. So anytime you're outnumbered by guests, you know it's going to be a good episode.
Yes, we're here for you.
Yes, we're primed and ready. We're primed and ready. So let me do a quick intro of you guys. Even though you guys have received an introduction on prior episodes.
Just in case you forgot.
Yeah, just in case you forgot, here they are. So Rachel Tomasic has spent a decade in leadership development consulting and talent development. She served on multiple civic and non-for-profit boards, including the board here at Binmin. And Rachel, I'm so glad you're here today.
Thanks for having me back.
You got it. Libby Harris has been a leader in the marketing and sales industry for a decade and has led in all kinds of community organizations like Urban Youth Mentoring and her local church. And Libby is also on the board here at Binmin. So Libby, you're a familiar face, but always glad to have you back.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
And Eve Stipes is the executive director of Ruth Jo Simons Ministries and is the co-host of another fabulous podcast that we love around here, the Grace Laced Podcast. So thanks for being here, Eve.
Happy to be here.
She's like, I want to get as many podcasts as I can.
I'm doing what I can.
Yeah, so welcome back. Let's start with an important question. Should every young adult Christian woman think of herself as a leader? Why or why not?
Absolutely not. No.
No.
No, I think for sure we've talked a little bit about how leadership is influence, right? Mm-hmm. So everybody has influence and everybody should think about themselves as a leader because you're leading someone, whether it's yourself personally or people that are observing you, your families, your cousins, there are people watching.
Mm-hmm. So true. I agree. I think that it's influence, right? Ultimately, your impact on others. So if you have words, if you have actions, then you are a leader.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
I would just echo all of that. Yes, I think absolutely every female Christian should consider herself a leader because we are called to lead, right? We are called to have an influence and to have kingdom work, and that requires leading.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, well, to that point, Jesus gives a pretty subversive view of leadership. You guys all know this when he says, whoever among you wants to be great must become the servant of all. So what does it mean to be a servant leader? Does that make a difference?
I'll kick us off on that one. I saw the eye contact coming. Mm-hmm. I think absolutely we need to, when I think of servant leadership, I think of a leader who is willing to get their hands dirty. Right? Mm-hmm. They're willing to be in the thick of it with their team or with the people around them, not delegating the dirty work or the boring work, right? But hey, I think Bob, you'd be really good at this. Can you take it?
Yeah.
But I think there's a level of that's what servant leadership is to me of I'm willing to be side by side with you. I don't have to be in front.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anything you'd add to that idea of servant leadership?
Yeah, I would agree. Humility is at the heart of servant leadership. And it really challenges the word leader. I think a lot of times people become managers and many dictators when they aren't willing to be at the same level as their subordinates in the work and delegation and even the way you talk to your employees or volunteers or whatever it may be. So I think that humility is really key in that, and it really changes, I think, how people want to follow. If they know this person is here to serve me as much as I'm here to serve them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I think it goes back even to your first question of should everyone think of themselves as a leader? Yes, you have influence. Should everyone think of themselves as a servant? Yes, those two need to go together just in daily life, let alone work or other spheres of influence.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
So I was just going to say, I sure hope not to be the smartest person in the room, right? I want to surround myself. I hope people around me and behind me, with me, know more than I do in certain things, right? We are better together. And so if I'm not willing to be a servant leader in that, right? Or the humble leader, as Libby mentioned.
We're in trouble.
Who's going to follow? Who's going to be with me?
Yeah. Well, and there's a number of different contexts in which we lead, right? So we'll zone in on one of them. What does it take for a young adult woman to be a leader in the workplace? So specifically showing up in work.
Yeah. I think One, I mentioned it on another podcast, but just being willing to be bold. You aren't going to be seen as a leader without being bold, especially with, I don't know about the two of your work, but it's male dominated. And so just being willing to be bold, even if you don't have all the right answers, just being bold is one thing. And then, but also staying humble in that boldness. You can be softly bold. And so I think that is one thing, at least I found in my role, is really important, in boldness and asking for help, in making changes, in pushing some people's buttons a little bit and pushing back on what should or should not be done. So yeah, that is huge, I think, in leadership in the workplace in particular.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. What would you guys add?
I think it seems like to be a leader, you have to be willing to fail first, right? Like be willing to say, I don't know how this works, or I've got to figure it out. Like that's what makes you a leader, your willingness to step forward, to try something new, to ask a question. So it's easy to look at leaders and be like, they're just really good at their job. But they didn't just arrive at being good at their job. They had to ask the questions and fail and like learn how to do things. So I think, especially in a work context, being willing to look stupid or what feels like it's going to look stupid 100%. Or to fail and own it and say, okay, this is what I learned. Here's how we're going to do it differently.
Anyone who's been a viewer of the Binmin podcast can know I definitely have a deep commitment to being willing to look stupid on behalf of trying to. No, anyway.
We all appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you for that. Rachel, anything else you'd add about that piece?
I feel super passionately about Christian women leaders in the workplace minding their words. I think gossip doesn't just disappear when you leave high school, when you leave college. In fact, the workplace is rife with it. Yes. And I think we actually have more power if we manage our words appropriately, right? So if you're not always complaining about someone or talking down about a project or a process, but instead building people up so that when there is crisis, when there is toxicity, your words matter rather than you're always the person that cried wolf.
Yeah. Well, I want to zone in on another area, the church. So what does it take to be a young Christian female leader with other Christians? Whether it's doing something within the walls of your local church or something different that might be with other believers.
Can I just point out that's a real controversial question in itself? Yeah. Because the idea of leaders, women leaders in the church there's just a lot of controversies behind it. So I'm excited to hear what you guys have to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it can be a complicated question. I think that being a leader within your church context, I think it goes back to that servant leadership. Like that's a real easy way into leadership in a church context, especially if maybe you're at a new church or kind of a new fellowship and you're not maybe sure what the dynamic is or how people are going to respond or what the role of women leaders is. That servant leadership of just being the first to like jump in and to serve people and to love people and to use your gifts, right? To not be afraid to use your gifts. Like if you are someone who can organize people, then if they're looking for someone to organize, don't just wait. Like I can do that. Like volunteering, knowing your gifts and really stepping into those, I think is one of the best ways to kind of explore what it looks like to lead among other Christian women.
Yeah, that's true.
I would just say explore what you're passionate about.
Yeah.
Right? So if, and try things, right? As Eve said, just because you're like, maybe I think I'm passionate about students, you're not locked in that for a decade, right? Like try something, jump in, lean into the opportunities that the church has, and then know when to step back, right?
Yeah.
So if you are feeling drained or worn out or exhausted, give someone else the chance to lead, right? And so know when to lean in, but also when to step out. I think we always need to be serving in the church, but knowing where you're passionate about is helpful.
Yeah, boy, that's good. Yeah, and you're serving the church. You know, you're serving. Yeah, that's good.
I think that's such a good word too, Rachel. That to be a leader, you don't have to lead everything. Yeah. Like you don't have to force your way into leadership roles in either context, work or like you can be assertive and bold, but there's also a time for like, okay, I'm not going to lead this particular area, and that's okay too.
Yeah, I think that's really good. When I came to the church that I was at, I'd come from a church where I was basically volunteer staff. I had my own email address, a code into the building. I was very much a leader in the church. And when I came and switched, it's like, you know what? I'm going to wait and not do anything for a whole year and see where God really wants me. Because part of my challenge, I think, because I'm naturally prone to leadership, is to jump in and say, oh, well, I can do this, this, and this. But where does God really want me? What is the intent? Is this to glorify God or is it to glorify myself? So like pausing and saying no to a lot of stuff for a while was really healthy, to see where does God really want me to lead versus where it's me just wanting to do stuff.
And that may change year to year or every couple of years, right? So
For sure.
you're not just called to one area.
Yes.
Yeah, this is good. So you guys know this, as a ministry, Binmin is committed to helping people find their clear next step in their spiritual life. So what would you encourage as a next step based on what our conversation today has been?
I think an easy win is to go onto your church's website and figure out what service opportunities exist. I think everyone wants to be a leader in work, right? And sometimes leading in the church feels maybe less glamorous because it doesn't have the title or the pay or whatever. But I say that's a really great place to start because you have to grow your leadership skills anyway. So start in the church and ask questions where you can serve the church.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I would say a next step, kind of what she's saying, but maybe a little different, is are you thinking, just sitting and thinking, being a little introspective on, am I taking whatever step I need to be where God wants me to be? Because I think as women, it's really easy to be passive and like, oh, somebody else will do it. The guys will get it done. So like, am I being where God needs, am I being obedient ultimately in whatever the context is, work or church or wherever it is?
Yeah, I think an easy win too is just to pray about it. Like, God is your shepherd and he has made you to be a leader. And so he's going to take you to the opportunities that you need to say yes to and help you discern what to say no to, but you're going to have to ask him. You have to spend some time with him and not just assume like, I can figure this out on my own.
And listen.
Yes.
Right? Like, so some of the praying is also
needs to be some listening
like,
time.
it's not just Lord, like you're going to answer this prayer request, right?
Yeah.
Like the way I want it.
Right.
So I think listening too.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that makes for a great next step. So what's your next step? Pray about your starting step. So first you actually need to see your maker who made you and who's giving you your life opportunities right now, and knock on his door and say, Lord, where do you want me to serve? Where do you want me to give my life away? Who do you want me to bless? And it may be that the easiest or best place he wants you to start is with his own people in the church. So checking out the church website, knowing people who are already around you, and saying, maybe this isn't my favorite or this is the most glamorous place to serve, but I'm going to start serving and developing and exploring leadership because this is my starting step as a leader. Let us know how that goes. Let us know where you started, whether it was in your church or in the nursery or student ministries or helping lead a small group or whatever it might have been, or what the Lord laid on your heart as you prayed to him. Maybe that's in the comments here on this episode. Maybe that's on our socials, but we love hearing from you. Well, thanks for listening to the Binmin podcast, where we believe everyone should know their next step for making their spiritual life more important to them. Binmin is a resource ministry that is dedicated to helping you discover those next steps. So you can check out other episodes all over the place online, video and audio platforms, but you can also get our show notes and check more out about the ministry and our articles and a bunch of other content at binmin.org. Don't forget when you go there to sign up for the newsletter, where you'll get exclusive content coming straight at you and updates of things that are going on with Binmin. And make sure to check us out on all the different socials as you get short form video coming straight at you, where you can share it with other people and help them find their next step. So thanks for joining us for this episode. We love spending it with you. God bless.